Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to, Dawnfang. Every fucking time, every goddamn time I start a video, always Dawnfang's has to interrupt me. Usually I cut it out, but nah, I ain't cutting it out this time. We're back on the snuggle bench, here to read another book. I think I'm also starting to realize we're getting to the point where I'm gonna have to do a lot more reading than I currently am, just because there's so many fucking books left. So, I kind of hate to do it, but I might, not quite yet, but fairly soon, still thinking about it, still considering, but I might just take a month's worth of videos and just have each of those videos be me reading, which is pretty disappointing. I really didn't want to do that. I wanted to be able to kind of fluctuate between the two, but then at the same time, I wanted to be able to end the entire series off by just, doing some regular ass quests instead of just constantly alternating between the two, because you don't quite really get into a groove if you just, float back and forth between the two. But, yeah, that's not going to happen quite yet. Maybe at the start of next month. Yeah, I think these are the September videos right now. Maybe next month we'll, do just a shit ton of reading, yeah. But today, well, we're doing some more reading. We're doing reading today. Wow, who would have thunk? Let's see, what book should we read is the question for today. I would say we should start a series, but if we're going to be just taking a whole month to do stuff, I feel like we should save the series for then. So let's just... You know what? We're gonna start towards the... we'll start towards the top. Fuck it. Biography of the Wolf Queen. 16 pages. Let's do it. Biography of the Wolf Queen by Qatar Araphanes. Few historic figures are viewed as unambiguously evil, but Potema, the so-called Wolf Queen of Solitude, surely qualifies for that dishonor. Born to the imperial family in the 67th year of the Third Era, Potema was immediately presented to her grandfather, the Emperor Uriel Septim II, a famously kind-hearted man who viewed the solemn, intense babe and whispered, "She looks like a she-wolf about ready to pounce." Potema's childhood in the imperial city was certainly difficult from the start. Her father, Prince Pelagius Septim, and her mother, Quizara, showed little affection for their brood. Jeez, well, come on, people, it's still your child, even though she may be a little piece of shit. Her eldest brother, Antiochus, 16 at Potema's birth, was already a drunkard and womanizer. Infamous in the Empire, her younger brothers Sepphoris and Magnus were born much later, so for years she was the only child in the imperial court. At the age of 14, Potema was a famous beauty with many suitors, but she was married to cement relations with King Mantiarco of the Nordic Kingdom of Solitude. She entered the court, it was said, as a pawn, but she quickly became a queen. The elderly king Mantiarco loved her and allowed her all the power she wished, which was total. When Uriel Septim II died the following year, her father was made emperor, and he faced a greatly depleted treasury thanks to his father's poor management. Pelagius II dismissed the Elder Council, forcing them to buy back their positions. In Third Era 97, after many miscarriages, the Queen of Solitude gave birth to a son, who she named Uriel after her grandfather. Mantiarco quickly made Uriel his heir, but the Queen had much larger ambitions for her child. 2 years later, Pelagius II died, many say poisoned by a vengeful former council member, and his son, Potema's brother, Antiochus, took the throne. At age 48, it could be said that Antiochus's wild seeds had yet to be sown, and the history books are nearly pornographic in their depictions of life at the imperial court during the years of his reign. Potema, whose passion was for power, not fornication, was scandalized every time she visited the imperial city. Mantiarco, king of Solitude, died the springtide after Pelagius II. Uriel ascended to the throne, ruling jointly with his mother. Doubtless, Uriel had the right and would have preferred to rule alone, but Potema convinced him that his position was only temporary. He would have the empire, not merely the kingdom. In Castle Solitude, she entertained dozens of diplomats from other kingdoms of Skyrim, sowing seeds of discontent. Her guest list over the years expanded to include kings and queens of High Rock and Morrowind as well. For 13 years, Antiochus ruled Tamriel and proved an able leader despite his moral laxity. Several historians point to proof that Potema cast the spell that ended her brother's life, but evidence one way or another is lost in the sands of time. In any event, both she and her son Uriel were visiting the imperial court in 3rd Era 112 when Antiochus died, and immediately challenged the rule of his daughter and heir, Kitara. Potema's speech to the Elder Council is perhaps helpful to students of public speaking. She began with flattery and self-abasement. My most august and wise friends, members of the Elder Council, I am but a provincial queen, and I can only assume to bring to issue what you yourselves must have already pondered. She continued on to praise the late emperor, who was a popular ruler in spite of his flaws. He was a true septim and a great warrior, destroying, with your counsel, the near-invincible armada of Pyandonia. But little time was wasted before she came to her point. The Empress Magna unfortunately did nothing to temper my brother's lustful spirits. In point of fact, no whore in the slums of the city spread out on more beds than she. Had she attended to her duties in the imperial bedchamber more faithfully, we would have a true heir to the empire, not the half-wit milksop bastards who call themselves the emperor's children. The girl called Kintara is popularly believed to be the daughter of Magna and the captain of the guard. It may be that she is the daughter of Magna and the boy who cleans the cistern. We can never know for certain. Not as certainly as we can know the lineage of my son Uriel, the last of the Septim dynasty. Despite Potema's eloquence, the Elder Council allowed Kintara to assume the throne as the Empress Kintara II. Potema and Uriel angrily returned to Skyrim and began assembling the rebellion. Details of the War of the Red Diamond are included. Oh, I feel like I've never quite understood what the War of the Red Diamond was. Like, even as we were hearing so much about it during the Knights of the Nine, I never quite knew what exactly that battle was between. Like, I knew it was, like, between, like, the, northwest corner of Tamriel and the Imperial City, between some sort of rulers, but I didn't quite realize that it was with, the Wolf Queen. Details of the War of Red Diamond are included in other histories. We need not recount the Empress Kintara II's capture and eventual execution in High Rock in the year 3rd Era 114, nor the ascension of Potema's son, Uriel III, 7 years later. Her surviving brothers, Sepphoris and Magnus, fought the Emperor and his mother for years, tearing the Empire apart in a civil war. When Uriel III fought his uncle Sepphoris in Hammerfell at the Battle of Ichadag in 3rd Era 127, Potema was fighting her other brother, Uriel's uncle Magnus in Skyrim at the Battle of Falkenstar. She received word of her son's defeat and capture just as she was preparing to mount an attack on Magnus's weakest flank. The 61-year-old Wolf Queen flew into a rage and led the assault herself. It was a success, and Magnus and his army fled. In the midst of the victory celebration, Potema heard the news that her son, the Emperor, had been killed by an angry mob before he had even made it for trial in the Imperial City. He had been burned to death within his carriage. When Sepphoris was proclaimed emperor, Potema's fury was terrible to behold. She summoned Daedra to fight for her, had her necromancers resurrect her fallen enemies as undead warriors, and mounted attack after attack on the forces of the Emperor Sepphoris I. Her allies began leaving her as her madness grew, and her only companions were the zombies and skeletons she had amassed over the years. The Kingdom of Solitude became a land of death. Stories of the ancient Wolf Queen being waited on by rotting skeletal chambermaids and holding war plans with vampiric generals terrified her subjects. You actually get to some extent, I believe, you get to encounter the Wolf Queen when you play Skyrim, which is pretty cool. Potema died after a month-long siege on her castle in the year 3rd Era 137 at the age of 90. While she lived, she had been the Wolf Queen of Solitude, daughter of the Emperor Pelagius II, wife of the King Mantiarco, aunt of the Empress Kintera II, mother of Emperor Uriel III, and sister of the Emperors Antiochus and Sepphoris. 3 years after her death, Antiochus died, and his and Potema's brother Magnus took the throne. Her death has hardly diminished her notoriety, though there is little direct evidence of this. Some theologians, maintain that her spirit was so strong she became a Daedra after her death, inspiring mortals to mad ambition and treason. It is also said that her madness so infused Castle Solitude that it infected the next king to rule there. Ironically, that was her 18-year-old nephew, Pelagius, the son of Magnus. Whatever the truth of the legend, it is undeniable that when Pelagius left Solitude in 3rd Era 145 to assume the title of the Emperor Pelagius III, he quickly became known as Pelagius the Mad. It is even widely rumored that he murdered his father, Magnus. The Wolf Queen must surely have had the last laugh. Alright, well, that's the biography of the Wolf Queen. I think in the future, whenever the time does come, we're going to read a lot more in detail about the Wolf Queen in the 8-book series of the Wolf Queen, volumes 1 through 8. And this is, each of these are like much longer than that biography that we just... Okay, not much longer, but each of these are longer than the biography that we just read. Which is, quite a lot. It's a lot of details. Okay, that book's a little bit shorter. Well, you got one book that's at least slightly shorter. Yeah, that's a lot more detail than we just got there, huh? But let's go back up towards the top, and our next book is the Rerum Dirennis. Oh my lord, 21 pages. It's alright, it's alright. We're only reading 2 books here today anyway, so that's okay. Rerum Dirennis by Rerum Dirennis. Or is this... No, alright. I am 611 years old. Goddamn. I have never had children of my own, but I have many nieces and nephews and cousins who have been raised with the tales and traditions of our ancient, illustrious, and occasionally notorious clan, the Dirennis. Few families in Tamriel can boast so many famous figures, wielding so much power over the fates of so many. Our warriors and kings are stuff of legend, and it is not to dismiss their honor and their achievements to say you have heard quite enough about them. I myself have never picked up a sword or written an important law, but I am part of a lesser known, but still important Dirennis tradition, the Way of the Wizard. My own autobiography would be of little interest to posterity, though my nephew, nieces, and cousins indulge me to tell wild tales of life in the chaotic 2nd Era of Tamriel. But I have a few ancestors whose stories should be told. They may have changed history as we know it as dramatically as my better-known relatives, but their names are in danger of being forgotten. Most recently, Lysandus, the king of Daggerfall, was able to conquer his ancient enemies of Sentinel, and in part thanks to his court sorceress, Medora Dirennis. Her grandfather, Javrin Dirennis, was imperial battle mage to the court of the Dunmer Empress of Tamriel, Kataria, assisting her in creating peace in a time of turmoil. His great-great-grandfather, Peladil Dirennis, had a similar role with the first potentate, and encouraged the Guild Act without which we would not have all the professional organizations we have today. His ancestor, many times back, was the witch Raven Dirennis, who with her better-known cousins, Aiden and Rain, brought an end to the tyranny of the latter Alessian Empire. Before the Sigics of Artaeum, it is said she created the art of enchantment, learning how to bind a soul into a gem and use that to ensorcel all manners of weaponry. But it is the story of an ancestor even more ancient, more distant than Raven I wish to tell. Asliel Dirennis harkens back to the humble beginnings of our clan in the tiny farming village of Turgil on the banks of the river Camus, which was then called the Diren, hence the family name. Like all on Somerset Isle in those days, he was a simple planter of the fields, but while others only grew enough to sustain their immediate kin, even distant cousins of the Dirennis worked together. They would decide as a group which fields were best for wheat, orchard, vine, livestock, or apiary, and thereby always have the best yields of any farm which worked alone, doing the best as it could with what it had. Asliel had a particularly poor farm for most kind of agriculture. The small herbs found its stony, loamless, acidic soil very comfortable. Out of necessity, more than anything else, he became an expert on all manners of herbs. For the most part, of course, they were used in flavoring cooking, yeah. But as you know, hardly any plant grows on the surface of our world without a magical potential. That is very, very true. I mean, even in Skyrim, you can take literally any fucking food and brew a potion out of it, which is kind of crazy. Even so long ago, witches already were in existence. It would be ridiculous for me to suggest that Asliel Dirennis invented alchemy. What he did, what we can all be grateful for, is that he formulated it into an art and science. There were no witches' covens in Turgil, and of course there would be no mages' guild yet for thousands of years, so people would come to him for cures. He learned for himself the exact formula for combining black lichen and rubrush to create a cure for all manners of poison, and the amount of willow anther to crush and mix with chokeweed to cure diseases. There were few much greater threats in Turgil in those peaceful days than disease or accidental poisonings. Yes, there were some dark forces in the wilderness, trolls, chimera, the occasional malevolent fairy folk in Will-o'-the-Wisp. Will-o'-the-Wisp? God, those fucking things. But even the youngest, most foolish Altmer knew how to avoid them. There were, however, a few unusual threats, which Asliel had a hand in defeating. One of the tales told of him that I believe to be true is how he was brought a young niece who had been suffering from an unknown disease. Despite his ministrations, she grew weaker and weaker every morning. Finally, he gave her a bitter-tasting drink, and the next morning, ashes were found all around her bed. A vampire had been feeding on the poor girl, but Asliel's potion had turned her very blood into poison, without harming her in the least. That is fucking incredible. What? How the fuck? If only this formula had not been lost in the midst of history. Yeah, that would have been fucking wild, huh? This would have been enough to make him a minor but significant figure in the annals of early Somerset. But at that point in history, a barbarian tribe called the Lochvar had found their way down the Diren River and recognized Turgil as a rich target for raids. The Direnni, not being warriors yet but simple farmers, were helpless and could only flee and watch the Lochvar take the best of their crops, raid after raid. Asliel, however, had been experimenting with the vampire dust, and brought his cousins to him with a plan. The next time the Lochvar were sighted on the Diren, the word went out, and all the most able-bodied came to Asliel's laboratory. When the barbarians arrived in Turgil, they found the farmers deserted, and assumed that all had fled as usual. As they set about stealing the bounty, they suddenly found themselves under attack by invisible forces. Believing the Direnni farms to be haunted, they ran away very quickly. They attempted a few more raids, for their greed would always eventually overpower their fear, and each time they were set upon by attackers who they could not see. As barbaric as they were not stupid, and they changed their mind about the source of their defeat. It could not be that the farms were haunted because the crops were still being tended and harvested, and the animals seemed to show no fear. The Lokvar decided to send a scout to the farm to see if he could spy their secrets. The scout sent word back to the Lokvar that the Direnni farmers were populated with flesh and blood, entirely visible Altmer. He continued to watch as his barbarian cohorts moved down the river, and he saw the elderly and children flee for the hills, while the able-bodied farmers and their wives went to Aesliel's laboratory. He saw them go in. He saw no one come out. As usual, the Lokvar were repelled by invisible forces, but their scout soon told them what he saw happening in the laboratory. The next night, 2 of the Lokvar approached Aesliel's farm very stealthily, and managed to kidnap him without alerting the rest of the Direnni. The Lokvar chieftain, knowing that the farmers could no longer count on the alchemist to make them invisible, considered an immediate attack on the farms, but he was a vengeful sort and felt he had been humiliated by these simple farmers. A crafty plan emerged in his mind. What if the Direnni, who always saw his barbarian tribe coming, for once did not? Imagine the slaughter if no one even had a chance to flee. The scout had told the chieftain that Aesliel had used the dust of a vampire to make the farmers invisible, but he was not sure what the other ingredient had been. He described an incandescent powder that Aesliel had mixed into the dust. Aesliel, of course, refused to help the Lokvar, but they were experts in torture as well as pillage, and he knew he would have to talk or die. Finally, after hours of torture, he agreed to tell them what the incandescent powder was. He did not know the name, but he called it glow dust, the only remains of a slain will-o'-the-wisp. He told them they would need a lot of it if they wanted to turn the whole tribe invisible for the raid. The Lokvar grumbled that not only did they have to find and kill a vampire to attain his dust, but find and kill several. Well, you also need to kill several vampires because it's kind of a 1-for-1 ratio, but hey, it could be wrong. But find and kill several will-o'-the-wisps to get theirs. In a few days' time, they came back with the ingredients the alchemist asked for. The chieftain, not being a complete idiot, made Aesliel taste the potion first. But that just made him invisible and he just fucking walked away now. He did as he was told and turned invisible, demonstrating that it did truly work. The chieftain put him to work creating more. No one apparently noticed that while he did, he was nibbling on black lichen and rhubarb. The Lokvar took the potion as he dolled it out, and soon, but not too soon, that they didn't suffer. They were all dead. Yeah, you fucking idiots, why let him do anything invisible? Don't let the man go invisible. Have somebody test it out, but not fucking him. You cannot afford to have this guy go invisible, people. Come on. Fucking dumbasses. The scout who had seen Aesliel mixing the invisibility potion had apparently mistook the glow of the candlelights in the laboratory for an incandescence, which the second ingredient of the invisibility potion did not possess. The second ingredient was actually dole, simple redwort, one of the most common herbs in Tamriel. When they had insisted during torture that the Aesliel tell them what the incandescent powder was, Aesliel remembered that he had once experimentally mixed glow dust and vampire dust together once and created a powerful poison. It was simple enough to steal a little redwort from the barbarians' camp, mix that with the vampire and glow dust mixture, and create a potion that was in fact an invisibility potion. After curing himself, he gave the poison to the barbarians. The Lokvar, being dead, never again raided the Direnni farms, and having no other enemies, they were able to grow more and more prosperous and powerful. Generations later, they left Summermist and began their historic adventures on the Tamriel mainland. Aesliel Direnni, because of his excellence as an alchemist, was invited to the Artaeum and became a Psijic. It is not known how many more of the common formulas we know today were invented by him there, but I have no doubt the science and art of alchemy as we know it today would not exist without him. But that is all in the distant past. Aesliel's innovations, like my modest ones, like the achievements of the Dirennis throughout history, are but a stepping stone to the wonders which will come in the future. I wish I could be there to witness them, but if I can only share some of the past with the children of Dirennis and the children of Tamriel, then I will consider my life well spent. Well, that's nice to learn a little history, some alchemy background. You gotta love your alchemy. Everybody loves alchemy. Like I said, I do enjoy alchemy. Maybe not everybody does, but I, at least, for one, enjoy alchemy. It was kind of the main factor in making me a, millionaire over here. I still to this day will carry around all of my super powerful potions. In a novice potion calcinator that I need to sell off. But until the next time, everybody.
So,
You wanna leaf through my octavo?
got to go. Have things to see and people to do.
Definitely people to do. Yep. Alright, goodbye.
Cause I don't wanna see the glow without you. Refuse to even leave my home without you. Or my brain's gonna explode without you. I don't even know how to cope without you. Cause I don't wanna see the glow without you. Refuse to even leave my home without you. Or my brain's gonna explode without you. I don't even know how to cope without you.